Now I'd like to introduce Alana Sheeren.
I was going to have Marianne say the title of my talk, but I'll say it. That's okay. No, it's all right. So the title is, I Used to Hide, and Now I Shine. When I was growing up, there were three things I loved to do more than anything else: read, write, and dance. I was painfully shy, and the only places I felt completely at home in my own skin were when I was on a stage pretending to be someone else, or when I was in my imagination. When the rest of my friends were still reading Judy Blume's Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret, I was on to the epic novels of Ken Follett and Wilbur Smith. I would sit in my room and write stories about young girls and their dogs, or young girls and their horses, or young ballerinas. And I would dance between 3 and 7 days a week. From the time I was quite young, it's how I defined myself. I also started absorbing messages at a very young age that I was not enough. Now, I've been to therapy, I know where some of them come from. It doesn't really matter, I don't blame anyone for it. It's just the combination of my personality and my life circumstances. As I grew, those messages got internalized, and because it's what I was looking for, it's what I got. When I was 16, in my senior year of high school, I took a creative writing class, and our final project was either to write a novel, a collection of short stories, or a collection of poetry. I had the soul of a poet, so I poured my angst-ridden, hormonal, desperately wanting to be in love 16-year-old self into the poems that I wrote. And I will always remember the way it felt to get handed back that paper, sitting at my desk, the way my heart dropped and my body shook when I saw the B+. Now, B+ isn't a bad grade, but for me, a former perfectionist and a straight-A student, it was proof that I was a failure. And so I didn't write publicly for over 20 years. My last gig as a professional dancer was when I was 21. I was a can-can girl in Diamond Tooth Gertie's gambling hall in Dawson City, Yukon, way up in northern Canada. I danced 3 shows a night, 6 nights a week for 5 months. I got paid $400 a week, and I paid 1 week's pay back to my employer in rent. Everyone else seemed very grateful, and to me it didn't seem like very much. And honestly, I didn't think I could do better. So I quit, and I decided to set my sights on a new dream. The only problem was when I quit, I couldn't live up to my own standards anymore, so I stopped dancing altogether. And suddenly, at the ripe old age of 21, 2 of the things that fed my soul, as surely as my parents' meals had fed my body, were gone. I had closed the door on them completely. My new dream was to be an actress. Famous, beloved, rich, you know the dream. I did okay, I had some talent, but it's not the best career for someone who already feels like they're good enough, not good enough. I wore so many different masks, and I tried to contort myself into what I thought everybody else wanted me to be. I had no idea who I was. So I spent a lot of time on the couch, eating ice cream, and watching hours and hours and hours of Law & Order reruns. In my late 20s, I fell in love, I got married. And 5 months into my marriage, it fell apart. Boom, exploded, gone. I was devastated. My husband and I separated, we took some time, and we realized that we loved each other enough to try again. Well, that sent me on a new path. I went back to school to get my master's in clinical and community psychology, and I started to learn about myself in a new way. I started to look at some of my habits and patterns. We got pregnant. I miscarried. That was hard. About the time that baby would have been born, we got pregnant again, and I gave birth to my beautiful daughter, Ada, who's almost 5. Becoming a mother, especially of a little girl, woke me up in a new way. First of all, I turned the TV off. Second of all, I wanted to get rid of everything that held me back and that kept me playing small, because I did not want to pass that legacy along to her. So I started a business, an MLM business, and I was shown every fear, every place I had to grow, every way I had to get over myself. Whew, it was intense. And I learned a lot, but I couldn't quite figure out how to do it, how to get over myself. So I let the business go. We got pregnant again, I miscarried again. But this time I wasn't so upset because, that's what happened last time. I had a miscarriage, then I had a baby, so I had another miscarriage. Of course I was going to have another baby. And I got pregnant again. And I had Benjamin. For 5.5 months, our son lived and grew inside of me, and he was a teacher from the moment he was born. And then on July 29, 2010, my placenta abrupted, I hemorrhaged, and during surgery to save my life, Benjamin was stillborn. He was 1 pound, 1 ounce, and 10 inches long. He was perfect. Everything was there except his eyelashes and his eyebrows. And as I held his body in the hospital and cried and cried and cried and cried and cried, somewhere under all the pain, I knew that this was my opportunity. This was my chance to get over myself and to let it go. And this was a lesson that I was going to learn because I did not want to repeat it. So I gave myself permission to grieve fully. And I began to write about it publicly. And one night in my living room, as the fear that my daughter would die too strangled me again, I turned on some music and I began to dance. And something shifted inside me, and I felt like I was saving my own life. And so suddenly those things that I had given up all those years ago were back in my life, but this time I wasn't hiding behind them. I was laying my soul bare. And people responded. I would get emails and letters saying that hearing my story, hearing what I was going through, was helping people deal with their own grief. And suddenly I had an ebook and a retreat, and before I knew what was happening, I was serving in a way that felt like my purpose and was not something I ever would have imagined or could have anticipated. Now, it would be easy for me to stand up here and say, everything's perfect, I got it all figured out. But I still have long conversations with the not good enough fairy. And there are some days where it's all I can do to put one foot in front of the other, lean into trust, and cry. A friend of mine talks about us all being lighthouses, how we're born with this brilliant, beautiful light inside of us that shines out into the world. And over the years, this grime builds up. And other people can help us clean the outside of our windows, but we're the only ones who can clean the inside. And sometimes it takes a catastrophe to power wash those windows clean. And sometimes it's just dawning awareness and little actions, little practices every day. And suddenly, our light's shining again. One of the practices that has helped me remember who I am is Kundalini Yoga. And at the end of every class, we sing a song, and the words are, "May the long-time sun shine upon you, all love surround you, and the pure light within you guide your way on." And we close by chanting Sat Nam, which means true identity. And so that is my wish for all of us, that we live and work and love and play and grieve from our true identity. Because the world needs our light to shine. In 2009, the Dalai Lama said that the world will be saved by the Western woman. That's a big statement. And what he means is let your light shine. Doesn't matter how big or small your vision is. Live in your Satnam, live in your true identity. You are magnificent. You just need to remember it. And so I ask you, I would like to know at some point today, what is it that's keeping you away from yourself? What's taking you away from yourself? Where is the ache that lets you know that you're not living in alignment with who you really are? And what, if anything, has brought you back to yourself? That's my question. Thank you so much, Satnam.